As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows through the dense forest, Sarah found herself lost in the labyrinth of trees. She had wandered off the beaten path while hiking alone, confident in her sense of direction until now. The rustling of leaves behind her sent a chill down her spine. She quickened her pace, heart pounding in her chest. With each step, the forest seemed to close in around her, the darkness becoming suffocating. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette with glowing eyes, fixated on her with an intensity that froze her in place. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she stumbled backward, her mind screaming for escape. But no matter which direction she turned, the figure was there, its presence looming ever closer. Panic surged through her veins as she realized she was being hunted by something not of this world. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sarah bolted through the underbrush, branches tearing at her clothes and skin. She could feel the creature's hot breath on her neck, its unearthly growl echoing in her ears. Just when she thought she couldn't run any longer, Sarah burst into a small clearing where moonlight filtered through the canopy above. Gasping for air, she turned to face her pursuer, ready to confront whatever horror awaited her. But to her horror, there was nothing there, only the oppressive silence of the forest. Trembling, Sarah sank to her knees, realizing she had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. As she sat there, shaken and alone, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting for its next victim. And so, with the haunting memory of that night etched into her soul, Sarah vowed never to venture into the forest alone again, lest she come face to face with the true terror that lurked within. Months passed, but Sarah couldn't shake the trauma of her harrowing experience in the forest. Nightmares plagued her sleep, visions of glowing eyes and shadowy figures haunting her every waking moment. Determined to find solace, she sought the help of therapists and mediums, desperate for answers to the questions that tormented her. But no matter how hard she tried to forget, the memory of that night lingered like a festering wound. Then, one fateful evening, Sarah received an anonymous letter in the mail, a crude drawing of the forest, with a single word scrawled beneath it: remember. Her heart racing, Sarah knew she had to confront her fears once and for all. Gathering her courage, she returned to the forest, determined to unravel the mystery that had plagued her for so long. As she ventured deeper into the darkness, the familiar sense of dread washed over her, but this time, she refused to let fear dictate her actions. With each step, she felt a newfound sense of empowerment, a determination to face whatever lay ahead. Hours passed, and Sarah found herself standing once again in the small clearing where her nightmare had begun. But this time, she was not alone. From the shadows emerged the figure she had seen that fateful night, a creature neither human nor animal, its form twisted and grotesque. But instead of fear, Sarah felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if she had known this creature all her life. Without a word, the creature beckoned her forward, its glowing eyes piercing her soul with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. And in that moment, Sarah understood. The creature was not her enemy but her guardian, a protector of the forest and its secrets. It had saved her that night, guiding her to safety when all hope seemed lost. With tears in her eyes, Sarah reached out to touch the creature's outstretched hand, a silent gesture of gratitude and acceptance. And as their hands met, she felt a surge of energy course through her veins, a connection that transcended time and space. From that day forth, Sarah no longer feared the darkness, for she knew that even in the deepest shadows, she was never truly alone. And as she disappeared into the forest, hand in hand with her newfound companion, a sense of peace washed over her, knowing that she had finally found her place in the world. But as Sarah delved deeper into the heart of the forest with her mysterious companion, she began to sense a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle undercurrent of unease that sent a chill down her spine. Strange whispers echoed through the trees, their voices twisted and distorted, as if speaking a language long forgotten. Shadows danced on the forest floor, their movements unnatural and unsettling. Despite her growing apprehension, Sarah pressed on, driven by a newfound curiosity to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within the ancient woods. As they journeyed deeper into the forest's depths, the trees seemed to close in around them, their gnarled branches reaching out like grasping claws. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, and the ground beneath their feet turned soft and spongy, as if swallowing them whole. And then, they stumbled upon a clearing shrouded in darkness, where the very fabric of reality seemed to fray at the edges. In the center stood a gnarled tree, its twisted limbs reaching skyward like a grotesque mockery of life. Sarah's companion urged her forward, a silent command that she could not ignore. With trembling hands, she reached out to touch the tree's bark, feeling a surge of energy course through her veins. But as she did, the forest around them erupted into chaos, a cacophony of shrieks and wails that reverberated through the air. Shadows twisted and writhed, their forms coalescing into monstrous shapes that loomed over them like specters of the night. With a sinking feeling in her heart, Sarah realized the truth: the forest was alive, and it was hungry for her soul. Desperate to escape, she turned to flee, but it was too late. The shadows closed in around her, their icy grip dragging her down into the depths of darkness. And as Sarah's screams echoed through the night, the forest claimed another victim, its secrets buried beneath the tangled roots and twisted branches, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to wander into its grasp. As Sarah descended into the depths of darkness, her senses overwhelmed by the suffocating embrace of the forest, she felt herself slipping further and further away from reality. Time seemed to lose all meaning as she tumbled through a swirling vortex of shadows and despair. But just when she thought all hope was lost, a faint glimmer of light appeared in the distance, a beacon of hope cutting through the darkness like a guiding star. Summoning every ounce of strength within her, Sarah clawed her way toward the light, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. Inch by agonizing inch, she fought against the suffocating grip of the forest, her mind ablaze with a single thought: escape. And then, at long last, she broke free from the darkness, emerging into the blinding brilliance of daybreak. Blinking against the harsh light, Sarah found herself standing on the edge of the forest, the twisted trees looming behind her like silent sentinels. Relief washed over her like a tidal wave as she collapsed to the ground, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. She had survived the horrors of the forest, but she knew that she would never truly be free from its grasp. As she lay there, battered and bruised but alive, Sarah made a solemn vow to never return to those accursed woods again. For she knew that even though she had escaped with her life, the memory of that night would haunt her for the rest of her days. And so, with one final glance back at the forest that had nearly claimed her soul, Sarah turned and walked away, leaving behind the darkness and despair to forge a new path into the light. But little did she know that the forest was not yet finished with her, its secrets lurking just beyond the edge of her perception, waiting for the perfect moment to strike once again. As Sarah walked away from the forest, determined to leave its horrors behind, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of the wind made her skin crawl with unease. But she refused to let fear consume her. With each step forward, she felt a newfound sense of strength coursing through her veins, a resilience born from surviving the darkest of nights. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the silence, jolting Sarah from her thoughts. Whirling around, she saw a figure emerge from the depths of the forest, a young woman, her eyes wide with terror as she stumbled towards Sarah, pursued by something unseen. Without hesitation, Sarah sprang into action, racing toward the girl's side and pulling her into the safety of her arms. Together, they fled into the dense underbrush, their hearts pounding in unison as they fought for survival. But no matter how fast they ran, the darkness seemed to close in around them, its tendrils reaching out with an insatiable hunger. With every passing moment, Sarah could feel the creature's presence drawing closer, its malevolent energy pulsating through the air like a palpable force. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Sarah glimpsed a glimmer of light in the distance, a beacon of salvation cutting through the suffocating darkness. With renewed determination, she urged the girl onward, their footsteps pounding in rhythm as they raced toward freedom. And then, with a final burst of strength, they burst into the clearing, the warm glow of sunlight washing over them like a blessing from the heavens. Gasping for breath, Sarah turned to look back at the forest, her heart still racing with adrenaline. But there was no sign of the creature, no trace of the darkness that had pursued them. It was as if the forest itself had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the memory of its chilling embrace. As Sarah and the girl collapsed to the ground, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and relief, they knew that they had faced the ultimate test and emerged victorious. And as they looked up at the endless expanse of sky above them, they knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, they would face them together, united by the bond forged in the fires of adversity. And so, with the sun setting on the horizon and the promise of a new day dawning, Sarah and the girl set off into the unknown, their hearts filled with hope and the knowledge that they were survivors, bound by the shared experience of escaping the clutches of true horror. And as they disappeared into the distance, leaving the forest far behind them, they knew that they would carry the memory of that fateful night with them always, a reminder of the strength that lies within each and every one of us, waiting to be unleashed in the face of darkness. The forest stood silent and foreboding under the cloak of night, its twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers toward the starless sky. Sarah had always been drawn to the wild, untamed beauty of the woods, but tonight, as she ventured deeper into its depths, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at her insides. She had been hiking alone, seeking solace in the tranquility of nature after a particularly trying week. But as she wandered off the beaten path, the familiar landmarks began to blur together, and she realized with a sinking feeling in her heart that she was hopelessly lost. Panic bubbled up inside her as she searched for any sign of familiarity, but the darkness seemed to swallow her whole, obscuring her surroundings in an impenetrable shroud. With each passing moment, the forest seemed to close in around her, suffocating her with its oppressive silence. And then, just when she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, she heard the rustling of leaves behind her, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps crunching on the forest floor. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat as she whirled around, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. But there was nothing there, only the endless expanse of trees, their twisted forms looming ominously overhead. Shaking her head in disbelief, Sarah tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination playing tricks on her, but deep down, she knew that something was watching her, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone, hoping to find some semblance of civilization in this desolate wilderness. But to her horror, the screen remained blank, the battery drained beyond repair. It was as if the forest itself had cut her off from the outside world, trapping her in its tangled web of shadows and secrets. Desperate for escape, Sarah began to run, her footsteps echoing through the night like a drumbeat of fear. But no matter how fast she ran, the forest seemed to stretch on endlessly, its twisted pathways leading her further into the heart of darkness. And then, just when she thought she couldn't run any longer, she stumbled upon a small clearing bathed in moonlight, the soft glow illuminating the figure that stood at its center. It was a man, tall and imposing, his features obscured by the shadows that danced across his face. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she took a hesitant step forward, her instincts screaming at her to turn and flee. But something about the man drew her in, a magnetic pull that she couldn't resist. And as she drew closer, she saw the glint of something metallic in his hand, a knife, gleaming in the moonlight with a deadly sheen. With a sinking feeling in her heart, Sarah realized that she was not alone in the forest, that there was something far more sinister lurking in its depths than she could have ever imagined. And as the man raised the knife high above his head, a malicious grin spreading across his lips, Sarah knew that her worst nightmares were about to become a reality. As the man advanced toward Sarah, his movements slow and deliberate, she felt a surge of primal fear grip her heart. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight back, but her body seemed frozen in place, paralyzed by the terror that threatened to consume her. With each step he took, the man's laughter echoed through the clearing, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. She could see the madness gleaming in his eyes, a darkness that seemed to swallow her whole as he drew nearer. But just as she thought all hope was lost, a voice pierced the silence, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Leave her be," it whispered, its words carrying a weight that seemed to shake the very foundations of the forest. The man faltered, his grin faltering for just a moment as he glanced around the clearing, searching for the source of the voice. But there was no one there, only the darkness, stretching out in all directions like an endless abyss. "Who's there?" the man demanded, his voice tinged with uncertainty. But the voice remained silent, leaving only the sound of the wind rustling through the trees to fill the void. For a moment, the man hesitated, his grip on the knife tightening as he glanced back at Sarah, who watched him with wide, fearful eyes. And then, with a sudden burst of movement, he lunged forward, the blade flashing in the moonlight as he aimed for Sarah's throat. But before he could strike, something slammed into him from the side, a force unseen but undeniable, knocking him to the ground with a bone-jarring thud. Sarah gasped as she watched the man struggle beneath the weight of his unseen assailant, his screams echoing through the night as he thrashed and flailed in a desperate bid for escape. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The man lay motionless on the forest floor, his eyes wide with terror as he stared up at the empty sky above. With trembling hands, Sarah pushed herself to her feet, her heart still pounding with adrenaline as she surveyed the scene before her. But there was no sign of the mysterious savior who had come to her rescue, no trace of the presence that had intervened on her behalf. Feeling a mixture of gratitude and confusion, Sarah turned and fled from the clearing, her mind reeling with questions that had no easy answers. As she disappeared into the darkness of the forest, she knew that she would never forget the events of that night, that they would haunt her dreams for the rest of her days. But one thing was certain: she was not alone in the forest, and whatever darkness lurked within its depths, there was also a light, a guiding force that would always be there to protect her from harm. And as she disappeared into the night, Sarah knew that she would never truly be free from the forest's grasp, but that she would always find solace in the knowledge that she was not alone. As Sarah ventured deeper into the forest, her heart still racing from the encounter in the clearing, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow that flickered in the moonlight, seemed to whisper of unseen dangers lurking just out of sight. But despite her fear, she pressed on, driven by a stubborn determination to unravel the mysteries that lay hidden within the dark heart of the woods. With each step, she felt a strange sense of connection to the forest, as if it held secrets that were meant for her and her alone. Hours passed, and still, Sarah wandered deeper into the labyrinth of trees, her mind consumed by thoughts of the encounter in the clearing. Who had saved her from the men with the knife? And why had they chosen to intervene on her behalf? As she pondered these questions, a strange sensation washed over her, a tingling at the back of her neck, a prickling of her skin that sent shivers down her spine. Something was drawing her forward, pulling her deeper into the heart of the forest with an irresistible force. And then, at long last, she stumbled upon it, a hidden glade bathed in silver moonlight, its beauty breathtaking in its simplicity. But it was not the beauty of the glade that captured Sarah's attention, but rather the figure that stood at its center, a woman, her form bathed in an otherworldly glow that seemed to emanate from within. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she approached the woman, her senses overwhelmed by the aura of power that surrounded her. There was something familiar about the woman, something that tugged at the edges of Sarah's memory like a half-forgotten dream. "Who are you?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustle of leaves and the soft sigh of the wind. The woman smiled, her eyes sparkling with a wisdom that seemed to transcend time itself. "I am the guardian of the forest," she said, her voice like the gentle murmur of a distant stream. "And you, Sarah, are the chosen one, the one destined to unlock the secrets that lie hidden within these ancient woods." Sarah's heart skipped a beat at the woman's words, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. What secrets did the forest hold? And why had she been chosen to uncover them? But before she could voice her thoughts, the woman reached out and placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, her touch sending a jolt of energy coursing through her veins. "Listen closely, Sarah," the woman said, her voice solemn. "For the fate of the forest, and indeed, the fate of the world, rests in your hands. You must journey deep into the heart of the woods, where ancient magic lies dormant, waiting to be awakened." Sarah nodded, her resolve hardening with each passing moment. She didn't fully understand what lay ahead, but she knew that she couldn't turn back now, not when the future of the forest, and perhaps even the world itself, hung in the balance. And so, with a newfound sense of purpose burning in her heart, Sarah set off into the depths of the forest once more, her mind ablaze with the possibilities that lay ahead. Little did she know that her journey was only just beginning, and that the trials and tribulations that awaited her would test her strength, her courage, and her very humanity in ways she could never have imagined. As Sarah delved deeper into the heart of the forest, she felt the weight of the ancient trees pressing down upon her, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers to ensnare her. But she pushed onward, guided by an unshakable determination to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within the woods. With each step she took, the air grew thick with the palpable sense of magic, a crackling energy that sent tingles racing down her spine. She knew that she was drawing closer to her destination, closer to the source of the ancient power that pulsed beneath the surface of the forest like a heartbeat. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of wandering, Sarah emerged into a small clearing bathed in a soft, ethereal light. At its center stood a towering oak tree, its branches stretching toward the heavens like a silent sentinel guarding the secrets of the forest. As Sarah approached the tree, she felt a strange sense of reverence wash over her, as if she were standing in the presence of something far greater than herself. She reached out to touch the rough bark, her fingertips tingling with the raw power that seemed to emanate from the ancient wood. And then, as if in response to her touch, the tree began to shimmer and glow, its leaves rustling in a gentle breeze that seemed to come from nowhere. Sarah gasped in awe as she watched the magic unfold before her eyes, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the clearing, a voice that seemed to come from the very heart of the forest itself. "Welcome, Sarah," it said, its tone both comforting and unsettling. "You have been chosen to wield the power of the forest, to protect it from those who would seek to destroy it." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she listened to the voice, her mind reeling with the enormity of the task that lay before her. She knew that she was not alone, that the forest itself would guide her, protect her, and empower her to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With a newfound sense of purpose burning in her heart, Sarah closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, opening herself up to the ancient magic that surrounded her. And as she did, she felt a surge of power coursing through her veins, a connection to the very essence of the forest itself. When she opened her eyes once more, she knew that she was ready, that she would face whatever trials and tribulations awaited her with courage and determination. For she was not just Sarah, lost in the depths of the forest. She was Sarah, guardian of the woods, protector of its secrets, and champion of its ancient magic. And as she stepped out of the clearing and back into the dark embrace of the forest, she knew that her journey had only just begun. As Sarah ventured deeper into the forest, her newfound connection to its ancient magic guiding her every step, she encountered challenges that tested her resolve and courage. From dark creatures lurking in the shadows to treacherous paths that threatened to ensnare her, she faced each obstacle head-on, drawing strength from the very heart of the woods itself. With each trial she overcame, Sarah felt herself growing stronger, more attuned to the rhythms of the forest and the power that pulsed within it. And as she journeyed deeper into the wilderness, she began to uncover the truth behind the ancient magic that had drawn her into its embrace. She learned of the forest's history, of the wars fought and the sacrifices made to protect its secrets from those who would seek to exploit them for their own gain. She discovered the hidden realms that lay hidden beneath the forest floor, where creatures of myth and legend dwelled in the shadows, watching and waiting for the chosen one who would come to claim their birthright. But despite the dangers that lurked around every corner, Sarah pressed on, driven by a sense of duty and purpose that burned like a beacon in the darkness. And with each passing day, she grew closer to unlocking the true potential of the ancient magic that coursed through her veins. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of trials and tribulations, Sarah reached the heart of the forest, a place of unimaginable beauty and power, where the very fabric of reality seemed to blur and shift with every breath. With a sense of awe and reverence, Sarah stepped into the clearing, her senses overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the magic that surrounded her. And as she raised her hands to the sky, a brilliant light erupted from her fingertips, illuminating the darkness and banishing the shadows that had plagued the forest for centuries. In that moment, Sarah knew that she had fulfilled her destiny, that she had become not just the guardian of the forest, but its savior, its champion, its queen. And as she stood bathed in the warm glow of the ancient magic, she knew that her journey was far from over, that she would continue to protect and defend the forest for as long as she drew breath. And so, with a triumphant smile on her lips and a heart full of hope, Sarah turned and disappeared into the depths of the woods, her spirit forever intertwined with the ancient magic that pulsed through every leaf and every tree. For she was not just Sarah, lost in the depths of the forest. She was Sarah, guardian of the woods, protector of its secrets, and champion of its ancient magic. And her legend would live on for generations to come. In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, nestled deep within a dense forest shrouded in mist, there stood an old, dilapidated cabin. Its weathered walls bore the scars of time, and its windows were dark and empty, as if no one had set foot inside for years. But despite its decrepit appearance, the cabin had a sinister reputation, a reputation that had earned it the nickname the Haunted Cabin among the locals who dared not speak its name aloud. Legend had it that the cabin was cursed, its walls stained with the blood of those who had met their untimely demise within its confines. Tales of strange noises in the dead of night, of shadowy figures lurking in the darkness, had spread like wildfire through the small mountain town that lay at the forest's edge. And yet, despite the warnings and the whispers, there were those who dared to venture into the forest, drawn by the allure of the unknown and the promise of adventure. One such person was Emily, a young woman with a thirst for excitement and a curiosity that knew no bounds. Determined to uncover the truth behind the legends, she set out into the forest alone, her heart pounding with anticipation as she approached the cabin's weathered door. As she stepped inside, the air grew thick with the scent of decay, and Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. The interior of the cabin was dark and musty, the walls lined with peeling wallpaper and cobwebs that hung like tattered curtains. But despite the eerie atmosphere, Emily pressed on, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as she explored every corner of the cabin in search of answers. With each step she took, she felt a growing sense of unease, as if the very walls themselves were watching her every move. And then, just as she was about to give up hope, Emily stumbled upon a hidden door concealed behind a crumbling bookshelf. With trembling hands, she pushed it open, revealing a staircase that led down into the bowels of the earth below. Heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement, Emily descended into the darkness, her flashlight illuminating the narrow passageway as she ventured deeper into the unknown. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, Emily found herself standing in a vast underground chamber, its walls lined with ancient symbols and strange, otherworldly artifacts. She could feel the power that pulsed through the air like a tangible force, a sensation that sent chills racing down her spine. But before she could fully comprehend the magnitude of what she had discovered, a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Welcome, Emily," it said, its tone both welcoming and chilling. "You have unlocked the secrets of the haunted cabin, and now you must face the consequences." Emily's heart skipped a beat as she listened to the voice, her mind reeling with 1,000 questions. What secrets did the cabin hold? And what consequences awaited her for daring to uncover them? But before she could voice her thoughts, a figure emerged from the shadows, a figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It was the spirit of the cabin, the source of its curse, and now it sought to claim Emily's soul as its own. With a scream that echoed through the chamber, Emily turned and fled, her heart pounding in her chest as she raced back up the stairs and into the forest beyond. But no matter how fast she ran, she could feel the spirit's cold breath on her neck, its malevolent presence closing in with every step. And then, just when all hope seemed lost, Emily burst out of the forest and into the clearing where she had left her car, the sunlight blinding her eyes as she collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. As she lay there, trembling and exhausted, Emily knew that she had narrowly escaped the clutches of the haunted cabin. But the memory of what she had seen and experienced would haunt her for the rest of her days, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the darkness and the price of curiosity unchecked. And as she drove away from the forest, leaving the haunted cabin far behind her, Emily vowed never to return, to leave the secrets of the cursed cabin buried in the depths of the earth, where they belonged. But little did she know that the spirit of the cabin was not so easily defeated. its curse lingering like a shadow on the edge of her consciousness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike once again. As Emily drove away from the haunted cabin, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the pit of her stomach. Despite her vow never to return, the memory of what she had seen and experienced haunted her every waking moment, like a specter lurking just beyond the edge of her vision. Days turned into weeks, and yet Emily could find no peace, her dreams plagued by visions of the cursed cabin and the malevolent spirit that dwelled within its walls. She tried to convince herself that it was all just a trick of the mind, a figment of her imagination born from the fear and uncertainty of that fateful night. But deep down, she knew the truth that the cabin held secrets far darker and more sinister than she could have ever imagined, and that she had unwittingly unleashed forces beyond her control. Determined to find answers and put an end to the nightmares that plagued her, Emily returned to the small mountain town that lay at the edge of the forest. She sought out the local historian, a wizened old man with a penchant for the supernatural and a wealth of knowledge about the area's dark and twisted past. Together, they combed through dusty tomes and yellowed manuscripts, piecing together the history of the haunted cabin and the curse that had plagued it for centuries. They learned of the cabin's origins, of the dark rituals that had been performed within its walls, and of the souls that had been sacrificed to appease the vengeful spirits that dwelled there. But as they delved deeper into the cabin's history, Emily and the historian discovered something even more chilling: a prophecy foretelling the coming of a chosen one, a person destined to unlock the secrets of the cabin and unleash its dark power upon the world. And as Emily read the words of the prophecy, she felt a chill run down her spine, for she knew that she was the chosen one, the one fated to bring about the destruction of everything she held dear. With a heavy heart, Emily knew that she had no choice but to confront the darkness that lurked within the haunted cabin once and for all. She gathered her courage and set out into the forest, determined to put an end to the curse that had haunted her for so long. As she approached the cabin, Emily could feel the weight of its malevolent presence bearing down upon her, its dark energy suffocating her with its oppressive force. But she refused to back down, steeling herself for the battle that lay ahead. With each step she took, the air grew thicker and colder, until finally, she stood once more before the cabin's weathered door. With a trembling hand, she pushed it open, steeling herself for whatever horrors lay beyond. But to her surprise, the cabin's interior was empty, the darkness that had once filled its halls replaced by an eerie silence. Emily cautiously made her way through the cabin, searching for any sign of the spirit that had haunted her dreams. And then, just as she was about to give up hope, she heard the sound of soft weeping, echoing from the depths of the forest outside. With a sinking feeling in her heart, Emily realized that the spirit had lured her here, drawing her into its trap with the promise of answers and redemption. Determined to confront the spirit once and for all, Emily followed the sound of the weeping deeper into the forest, until finally, she emerged into a small clearing bathed in moonlight. And there, standing before her, was the spirit of the haunted cabin, a twisted, spectral figure with eyes that burned with a hatred as old as time itself. With a voice like the whisper of the wind, the spirit spoke, its words filled with venom and malice. "You cannot escape your destiny, chosen one," it said, its voice echoing through the clearing like a death knell. "You are mine, now and forever." But Emily refused to be cowed by the spirit's threats. Drawing upon the courage and strength that lay within her, she raised her hands and called upon the power of the ancient magic that pulsed through the forest. And in that moment, a blinding light erupted from Emily's fingertips, engulfing the spirit in a brilliant cascade of energy. With a howl of rage, the spirit was banished back to the depths of the haunted cabin, its curse broken and its power diminished. As the light faded and the darkness receded, Emily knew that she had finally freed herself from the grip of the haunted cabin, and that she had fulfilled her destiny as the chosen one. And as she looked out at the forest that had been her home and her prison, she knew that she was finally free to forge her own path, unbound by the chains of fate that had held her captive for so long. With a sense of peace and purpose filling her heart, Emily turned and walked away from the haunted cabin, leaving behind the darkness and despair that had once threatened to consume her. And as she disappeared into the depths of the forest, she knew that she would never forget the lessons she had learned, or the strength that she had found within herself. For she was not just Emily, Lost in the depths of the forest, she was Emily, survivor of the haunted cabin, conqueror of the darkness, and guardian of the light. As Emily ventured deeper into the forest, she felt a sense of liberation wash over her, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. With each step she took, she left behind the darkness and despair of the haunted cabin, embracing the newfound sense of freedom that filled her heart. But even as she walked away from the cabin, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching her, lurking in the shadows just beyond the edge of her vision. It was as if the spirit of the cabin still lingered, its malevolent presence clinging to her like a ghostly specter. Determined to put the past behind her once and for all, Emily continued deeper into the forest, her senses on high alert for any sign of danger. But the further she walked, the more the forest seemed to close in around her, its twisted branches reaching out like grasping fingers to ensnare her in their grasp. With each passing moment, Emily felt the sense of unease growing stronger, until finally, she stumbled upon a clearing bathed in moonlight. At its center stood a lone figure, a woman, her form obscured by the shadows that danced across her face. Emily's heart skipped a beat as she approached the woman, her instincts screaming at her to turn and flee. But something about the woman drew her in, a magnetic pull that she couldn't resist. As she drew closer, Emily saw the sadness in the woman's eyes, a sorrow that seemed to echo through the depths of her soul. Without a word, the woman reached out and took Emily's hand, her touch sending a jolt of energy coursing through Emily's veins. And then, with a voice like the whisper of the wind, the woman spoke. "Do not be afraid, Emily," she said, her words carrying a weight that seemed to hang in the air like a tangible force. "I am the guardian of the forest, and I have been waiting for you." Emily's breath caught in her throat as she listened to the woman's words, her mind reeling with 1,000 questions. What did the woman want from her? And why had she been chosen to be the guardian of the forest? But before she could voice her thoughts, the woman spoke again, her voice filled with a sadness that sent shivers down Emily's spine. "You have faced great darkness, Emily," she said. "But you have also shown great courage and strength. And now, the fate of the forest rests in your hands." With those words, the woman disappeared into the shadows, leaving Emily standing alone in the clearing, her mind spinning with the enormity of what had just happened. But as she looked out at the forest that stretched out before her, Emily knew that she was ready, that she would face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and determination. For she was not just Emily, lost in the depths of the forest, she was Emily, guardian of the woods, protector of its secrets, and champion of its ancient magic. And with a sense of purpose burning in her heart, Emily turned and walked deeper into the forest, ready to embrace her destiny and the adventures that awaited her on the path ahead. As Emily delved deeper into the forest, she felt the weight of her newfound responsibility pressing down upon her. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow that flickered in the moonlight, seemed to whisper of the challenges that lay ahead, testing her resolve and courage at every turn. But Emily refused to let fear hold her back. With each step she took, she drew upon the strength and determination that lay within her, knowing that she had been chosen for a reason, that she was the guardian of the forest, entrusted with protecting its secrets and preserving its ancient magic. As she journeyed deeper into the heart of the woods, Emily encountered wonders beyond her wildest imagination: hidden groves filled with shimmering light, majestic creatures that roamed the forest with a grace and majesty that took her breath away, and ancient ruins that spoke of a time long forgotten. But for every wonder she discovered, Emily also encountered dangers that tested her courage and resourcefulness: a pack of hungry wolves stalking her through the darkness, a treacherous cliffside that threatened to send her plummeting to her doom, and dark forces that lurked in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But no matter how dire the circumstances, Emily refused to back down. With each challenge she faced, she grew stronger and more determined, drawing upon the wisdom of the forest and the power of its ancient magic to overcome every obstacle in her path. And as she journeyed deeper into the heart of the forest, Emily discovered that she was not alone, that there were others who shared her vision and her purpose, united in their quest to protect the woods from those who would seek to harm it. Together, they formed a fellowship bound by a common goal: to safeguard the forest and all who dwelled within it, to preserve its beauty and its magic for generations to come. And as they stood together, united in their cause, Emily knew that she had found her true family, the family of the forest, who would stand by her side through thick and thin, come what may. With a sense of peace and purpose filling her heart, Emily looked out at the forest that stretched out before her, knowing that her journey was far from over, that there were still trials and tribulations awaiting her on the path ahead. But she faced the future with courage and determination, knowing that as long as she had the forest at her side, she could overcome any challenge that came her way. And so, with a smile on her lips and a heart full of hope, Emily turned and walked deeper into the forest, ready to embrace whatever adventures awaited her on the path ahead. For she was not just Emily, lost in the depths of the forest. She was Emily, guardian of the woods, protector of its secrets, and champion of its ancient magic. As Emily journeyed deeper into the heart of the forest, her resolve hardened with each step. She knew that she was nearing the culmination of her quest, the final confrontation that would determine the fate of the woods and all who dwelled within it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of trials and tribulations, Emily emerged into a vast clearing bathed in moonlight. At its center stood a towering tree, its branches reaching toward the sky like the outstretched arms of a guardian. But as Emily approached the tree, she felt a sense of unease wash over her, a feeling that she was being watched, that something dark and sinister lurked in the shadows just beyond the edge of her vision. With a sinking feeling in her heart, Emily realized that she was not alone in the clearing, that the forces of darkness had gathered to oppose her, to prevent her from fulfilling her destiny as the guardian of the forest. But she refused to be intimidated. Drawing upon the power of the ancient magic that pulsed within her, Emily raised her hands and called upon the spirits of the forest to aid her in her hour of need. And in that moment, a blinding light erupted from Emily's fingertips, illuminating the clearing with a brilliance that banished the darkness and sent the creatures of the night scurrying for cover. With a triumphant shout, Emily faced her adversaries head-on, her heart pounding with adrenaline as she unleashed the full force of her power upon them. Shadows writhed and twisted in the light, dark tendrils lashing out in a desperate bid for survival. But Emily stood her ground, her determination unshakable as she faced down the forces of darkness with courage and resolve. And as she fought, she felt a sense of peace wash over her, and knowing that she was not just fighting for herself, but for the future of the forest and all who called it home. And then, just when it seemed that all hope was lost, Emily unleashed one final burst of energy, a wave of pure light that engulfed her adversaries and banished them from the clearing once and for all. With a triumphant cry, Emily collapsed to her knees, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she surveyed the battlefield before her. The clearing was silent once more, the only sound the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. But as Emily looked up at the towering tree that stood at the center of the clearing, she knew that her journey was far from over, that the fight to protect the forest would continue for as long as she drew breath. And as she stood and walked away from the clearing, a sense of peace and purpose filled her heart, knowing that she had fulfilled her destiny as the guardian of the woods. For she was not just Emily, lost in the depths of the forest. She was Emily, protector of its secrets, champion of its ancient magic, and guardian of its light.